get into one of my cars, you get in the win.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Hey guys, this is Matt Hagan, three-time funny car world champion, and you're watching Drafting the Circuits.
Do you feel ready for Formula One?
Youngest ever Formula One driver, 17 years of age.
How you handled all this media attention must have been different.
Do you have any worries that if you don't prove yourself right from the very beginning, that you might be this flash in Formula One and that's all?
I'm not worried about that because I know where I'm capable of. A racing car is a racing car. It's just everything around it. The thing I have to do is be quick straight away and be consistent and don't make too many mistakes.
And Verstappen goes straight into the barrier.
You okay, Max? I'm okay.
He's come a long way since then.
What a thrilling drive that was from Max Verstappen.
Oh, this feels good.
Max Verstappen is champion of the world.
Oh my God!
Winning has always been in his DNA.
Extraordinary drive from this teenager.
At 18 years and 227 days old, Max Verstappen is the youngest driver ever to win a Formula One World Championship Grand Prix.
Yes, yes! Unbelievable, Max. Unbelievable. Max Verstappen, you are a race winner. Fantastic. What a debut. Fantastic. Great, great job.
Even from his first days in karting, that desire to compete, to win, was hardwired into the young Max. But plenty of young karters dream of racing glory, so what makes Max different? What makes him a champion? Speed?
Got it.
He's always had that. Bravery? That was always there too.
It's bold, it's brave, it's beautiful from Max Verstappen.
They know no fear, do they?
But sometimes he was too impatient. Too eager to beat the rest and be the best.
Max leaving the door open there a bit.
So which way is the door going to swing? Raikkonen tries. Oh, he's hit him!
He has to let me go. He has to let me go.
They touch the two rebels!
Someone hit me. Is that who I think it was?
He was a natural, yes, but he had to learn to tame his extraordinary talent.
They're going wheel to wheel, and they make contact!
Oh, mate, puncture. Puncture.
Oh, Verstappen on the inside of Vettel, they have touched!
Max!
And there's no better teacher than experience. So he drove, he raced, and he learned. And now his astonishing speed is targeted.
Verstappen is ahead! Max Verstappen takes the lead!
Yes!
Unrelenting.
all to play for here as it stands at the moment. Verstappen is down.
Wow.
He's got 2/10 to make up. Verstappen crosses the line to take pole position. Unbelievable.
That was mighty. His bravery undiminished.
And he's going for it again, Max Verstappen. This is absolutely epic.
Every champion needs that fighting spirit. But now he has the skill, precision, and timing to go with it. Now, he's a past master.
Max Verstappen from 10th on the grid comes home to win.
That is right up there with your best. Unbelievable.
Verstappen is a man on a mission, carving his way through the field.
And they rather like that.
Max Verstappen takes victory.
He's done it from 14th on the grid.
Class of your own, mate.
Of course there will be setbacks, but that's part of the game.
Our race leader has crashed.
Verstappen had this race in his hands.
What's going on with the battery?
Battery fine.
No, it's not. What is this?
Max Verstappen is out of the race.
Oh, and Verstappen.
He is out.
Every champion needs that mental toughness, that determination to bounce back, even stronger when things go wrong. And this year, armed with a car that's perhaps the best we've ever built, Max's combination of extraordinary natural talent and carefully honed experience have elevated him to another level.
He's picked up 2 cars in the space of 1 corner.
That is absolutely outrageous.
Verstappen just breezes past like someone's put rocket fuel into that car.
In 2023, he isn't just winning anymore, he's dominating.
12 wins in a row for Red Bull.
And the records are falling.
6th Constructors' Championship.
In the wet, in the dry, Max Verstappen wins.
Oh, very lovely that.
For the first time in F1 history, it's 10 wins in succession.
And a moment of history written in the record books for Max Verstappen.
What an unbelievable season we are having.
Max Verstappen is the world champion of 2023.
This championship became an inevitability for him.
To be able to achieve something like this, I can't thank you all enough.
And he's far from finished yet. Speed, skill, fearlessness, determination and precision. This is the DNA of a winner. The DNA of Max Verstappen, 3-time champion of the world.
Drivers, start your
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network and welcome to the Drafting the Circus program. My name is Frank Santarowski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about everything racing. Joining me in the studio, I've got Richard Uden and Luis Torres. Fellas, how we doing?
Good. How's it going?
It's going well.
Going well. All right. So first off, nod to the sponsors, Luis Torres Multimedia, Alzheimer's Association, and that Ferrari film. that's going to be coming out around Christmas. So, and if you haven't had a chance to play the new Forza Motorsport by Xbox, my buddy Keith, our producer, he's been doing nothing but play that game since it came out on the 10th. So yeah, hats off to them for sponsoring us the first part of the year. So, Richard, do we have a surprise winner in Formula One this week?
It's sort of.
Yep. So Max Verstappen, again, he had that one little stumble where he didn't won the race and everyone thought the end was the world. Now he's, right back to zipping away from the rest of the field. He clinched the championship, which was, it's been a foregone conclusion for a while, but now it's official. He's only the fifth person to do three-peat as champion, which is interesting because the first guy to do it was, Fangio in the 50s, right? And nobody was able to repeat that until the 2000s, until Schumacher. So, but since then, you've had Schumacher, Vettel, Hamilton, and now Verstappen. That just kind of shows you that we're in the era of single team domination over a season, and it doesn't seem to be showing any signs of us getting a deeper or more competitive field. Again, rule changes in a couple of years might shake things up, but it's just it's kind of telling. When you look back at some of the seasons in the past, in particular, I think like the most competitive era was the early turbo era. If you look at like 1982, we had 11 different winners from 7 different teams.
Yeah,
and this year we've had Max and Max and Max.
And then there's Carlos and technically Oscar Piastri.
And Checo.
And and Ferrari won.
And Checo too. Yeah,
Ferrari.
I don't want to talk about the last two. I don't want to talk about his last 2 races because I will go on a tangent.
Talk about everything after the first.
All right.
Four.
So despite the fact that Max just ran away from the field from the start, which was aided by Hamilton and Russell kind of getting into one another, allowed Max to get away. It was a pretty decent race behind Max. You saw 2 McLarens at the podium there and Oscar Piastri. Richard, I got to tell you, I got nothing but good things to say about this kid.
Yeah.
He's having a hell of a. I think he's he's Formula One's next big rising star. What do you think, Richard? Too early to tell.
I think that team as a whole, with that driver partnership of Lando and Oscar, if they can start to produce a car, they're a very, very strong partnership for the next 5, potentially 10 seasons. If they can really get a car out there that's capable of challenging for wins, race wins, and championships, because they've got 2 very, very, very talented young drivers who get on well, I think, with each other. Oscar's got that typical Australian sort of personality, which I think lends himself to those sort of relationships. And I'm really excited for what that team can produce over the next few years. There's certainly, after some relatively major changes in staffing with, I think Andrea Seidel, who's left, and he's going to go to the Audi setup. They've got a new technical leadership group. They've got a new wind tunnel that's just come online at the technology center there in Woking in the UK. So there's a lot of good stuff happening at McLaren. The one thing I think they still need is a works engine deal, and not be reliant on being a customer team. But it's certainly not hindering them in the short term. Long term, I think it will, but short term, I think they're in a very, very strong position.
Yeah, and to your point about Oscar and Lando, not only are these 2 guys working well together and very talented, they're both very likable. They both they're both great with the press. They're both great with the fans. I hear nothing but positive stuff about those guys.
No,
I mean all the chicks dig Oscar Piastri. I'm like,
they lost my phone number.
I think people dig Lando. I remember several years ago with one particular former follower before I lost my Instagram account last year and had to start all over.
Yeah, I mean, there's that young band of drivers coming through now that are very marketable. And I don't think that's because of PR training. I think they're just likable guys. You look at them, you'd put, you go through the field, you look at, Oscar and Lando, and you'd put Albon in that group. You'd put, I'd put Pierre Gasly in that group, and, George Russell as well, and Carlos Sainz as well, and maybe Charles Leclerc a little bit. And I think Max is in that group to a certain extent, but he does have a little bit of a way about him, Max. And I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Maybe that's just his, this isn't being derogatory by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe that's just his Dutch heritage has a slightly different approach than the other guys. But no, I think we're in for a really good run of likable, talented, amiable guys.
Marketable.
And again, marketable because of who they are, not because they jump through the marketing hoops. They're just, and they're not huge, social media whores. They have fun together and they're enjoying themselves. And I think it's it almost harks back to some of the younger drivers that we saw in the 70s and 80s. I think it's been a long time since we've seen this sort of driver setup that we're starting to see now.
Yeah, it's not one of those you've been told you're not supposed to like your teammate, etc., etc.
Yeah,
because that's the stuff that I remember when I did a feature on Greg Moore, when I talked to Max Pappas and Dario Franchitti. It's like the mindset they had from Europe is you're not supposed to be like buddies with your competitors, and then when they both moved to kart, it's a different landscape.
Yeah, and I think it's it is changing, because I say, and maybe this is like the anti Drive to Survive concept. Drive to Survive was very much trying to create these rivalries, and maybe these guys now are sort of going almost out of their way to say, look, we're not rivals, we are friends. We do hang out off away from the track. Albon and George Russell are almost inseparable away from the track.
And also in the sim racing. Yeah, in the sim world where they take themselves out every now and then.
Yeah, and I'm sure these guys are far more interested in what happens in the sim world when they race against each other than they are on a Netflix show about them that, as I say, unfortunately at times does seem to, like any reality TV show, bend the truth to sell a story that, doesn't always exist. So, yeah, we're in a, I think we're really well set in now for a good 5 to 10 years of these guys coming through and really, really holding their own. It's great to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also they're pretty damn good race car drivers as well, which is
So let's talk about that first lap incident with Hamilton and Russell. It seems to me, from what I've read, is Hamilton is taking full responsibility for that.
He just squeezed George.
He ended up. I think George ended his day fourth, maybe.
Yeah,
he recovered well.
And Lewis last. Lewis DNF. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting to see if George had the pace to challenge Max, because he wouldn't have been far off, I don't think. Certainly closer than McLaren's over the long distance. But they, you can't, Hamilton has his detractors at times naturally, but, he held his hand up to that one and he said, my fault. I, made a move and it resulted in his retirement and damaging his teammate's race. And, you can't criticize to a certain extent. He did what he held his hands up to it. So fair play to him on that front. And, Lewis has had, you could probably count on one hand or two hands the number of, instances like that Lewis has had over his whole career. He's typically a pretty clean driver. In all fairness, he had those long periods of domination where he never had much, wheel-to-wheel combat to be involved with. So it's easy to say he's clean when he's been out at the fronts for so long. But, he held his hands up to it. It was... they'll move on as a team. They'll have forgotten about it by now, and on to the next race for those guys.
Right. Obviously, the press likes to make more of it than it really is.
Oh yeah.
Always so,
Especially
yeah.
when you have two Brits involved, naturally that'll happen.
Yeah. So, Louise, you care to comment on Sergio Perez and what the hell happened again?
Let's see. He fumbled it. The team
catch a break.
He fumbled it. The crew fumbled it. Everybody fumbled it in that 11 team, even though it's pretty much the same crew as with Max. But I imagine you have different people working on Checo's than Max. But at the same token, it's the second straight race in a row where he could not do anything. He just could not. And that's why when I said last week who I want to pick besides Max, I mentioned Oscar. Oscar won the sprint race, lo and behold.
Yes, he did.
A crash. Couldn't make it out of Q3 again.
I tell you. So now,
if you see my social media, I've been vocal at saying this is not even cool. He's right on par like with Ralph Schumacher or with Williams.
What'd you say? You said like
or David Coulthard after 2000.
Yeah, you said something like, it's Sergio Perez's no good, miserable, messed up race or something like that.
That was
from the title of the kids' book, right?
Yeah, that was Suzuka in its literal form.
Yeah.
Qatar, it was more of an underwhelming one. Oh, I cannot wait to do one for Austin. I hope not, but I cannot wait for Austin to do the trilogy.
The thing is, now that the Perez has got some serious heat on him now, because you've got Red Bull principals saying stuff like, I hope Sergio realizes we have 3 drivers at AlphaTauri, which is that's a direct threat to his livelihood, if you ask me.
I mean,
there's Liam
Christian
Lawson
Horner
knocking on the door.
Yeah, I mean, for Christian Horner to turn around and say that Red Bull doesn't have a top driver lineup anymore is pretty damning. But he's not wrong. It's
no, he's not wrong.
Unfortunately for Checo, he has, to put it bluntly, he's cracked in the way that a lot of Max's teammates have done in the past. He just hasn't been able to cope with the pressure. The car probably doesn't help in the way that it is set up for him. The car is obviously, there's no doubt that Max is the number 1 driver of that team. So the car is designed around Max. And there's only one person in the world that can drive in the way Max does, and that's Max. So for anybody else to come in there and react and try and adapt and try and be as competitive as him, it's just not going to work. We've seen on numerous occasions, too many occasions this year, he's struggled to perform when Max has been out front winning by 30 seconds plus, if not a minute over where Checo's been. And I think if there was a more natural heir apparent within the AlphaTauri team, Checo would have gone by now. I don't think they rate Yuki Tsunoda as a teammate for Max. Not that Yuki's not a great driver, but he's not on that level, I don't think. Obviously, the Nick De Vries situation has now, put Danny Rick in the fold. Would they go and get him back and put him up against Max again? I don't know. And then Liam Lawson obviously is very, very inexperienced. So I think that is playing into Checo's hands massively. If they, if you go back a few years, if they had a Pierre Gasly or a Jean-Eric Verne or an experienced and strong lead driver at AlphaTauri that was chomping at the bit to get promoted, I personally think Checo would have gone by now. I just think that Red Bull have got lucky this year in that Max's performances have been so dominant. It's allowed them to win the Constructors' Championship at a canter. If it's a closer season, that may not have been the case. And you look at the drivers, the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull would still be leading the Constructors' Championship without any of Checo's points. It's pretty unbelievable.
They're that far ahead. Yeah.
So
the interesting thing, though, Richard, is at the beginning of the season, we were talking about Red Bull's 2023 car being a little more palatable to both drivers and not so much heavily towards Max. And Checo won a couple races early on, But, 4 or 5 races into the season, that all changed.
Yeah,
There's something about contract extensions. Maybe they should wait until the end of the year to do contract extensions.
Well, I remember Felipe Massa used to do that. Massa used to have this thing with Ferrari. He'd get a contract extension and then he'd
drop off the face of the earth.
But no, 100%. What you're talking about there is the Max effect. Max has, when a car's race cars are pretty, what's the word, organic in a lot of ways. You look at them and they're a machine and they should work in a certain way, but they're not. They behave, they have characteristics. And when you have a personality like Max there, he can drive the development of that car in his direction. As a Red Bull team principal or a technical director or chief engineer or a lead aerodynamicist or whoever it is, if you're asking for driver feedback and Max says, right, this is the direction we need to go in, and Checo says, no, this is the direction we need to go in, you know who you're listening to. I'll give you a clue. It's not Checo.
Yeah.
So as the car develop, a brand new car, a car out the box at the start of the season is going to be more neutral and more palatable for both drivers than it is at the end of the season, because you have that natural progression. And when you have a very influential and persuasive figure, if you like, in Max, that's the way it's going to go, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, you really can't argue with Max when he's winning all the races. You know what I mean? You've got to say, there's something there. But people are fond of saying, and they've said this about Hamilton as well, right? Back when Hamilton was dominant, that the car is so damn good that the car is so much better than the rest of the grid. You can put a trained monkey in there and they win races, right? Well, now Perez pretty much proves that's wrong. Right, because Perez is not a trained monkey; he's a fine race car driver. So, it goes.
He knows how to work his way back up, but he doesn't have to be working that this many times back from deep in the field to the front. He should be on glue of preventing both McLaren drivers to get podiums, or at the beginning of the year, Ferrari and Alonso.
Yeah, but my point is, a lot of these casual observers, shall we call them, they don't give enough credit to these guys and their role, their input and the role it has in the development of the car. Would anybody other than Lewis have been that dominant in that Mercedes, right? Would anybody other than Max be that dominant in the Red Bull? Maybe, the world will never know, but certainly, Perez is kind of showing you there, and to a certain extent, Lewis only had one teammate that was able to beat him. And that was a while back when Nico Rosberg was still around.
Yeah, but Bottas at the beginning here, but
Button beat him 1 year.
Yeah, I think it was the champion 2012 or No, it's definitely more often than not. It felt like Button bested, and that's where Button crafted himself from. Like, okay, he got.
I was referring to the Mercedes years. I was referring to the Mercedes years, but that's okay. That's okay. You know what I mean? Because
Button beat him
because Felipe Massa won the championship in 2008, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Nico Rosberg is the quasi Singapore Grand Prix William and a winner in the Williams in Massa's mind.
So let's talk about Lance Stroll. He had a little bit of a hissy fit, a little bit of a meltdown. He yelled at his mechanics, threw his helmet, stormed off, and now the FIA is investigating him for this behavior.
More than that, wasn't
that? He used some expletives on live TV.
Yeah, no. He the rumors are, and apparently the supposed video that shows he shoved his personal trainer over in the garage.
He
got physical with him.
Shoved the guy,
which is not a good. That's a pretty big faux pas in the Formula One world.
That's what he's being investigated for. So.
This ain't NASCAR, boys.
But I mean, the guy's already underperforming, right?
Yeah, if we're talking about Checo, the other one that's getting blasted is Alonso versus Stroll. It's been like Alonso could carry the entire team without equating, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't count Stroll's points, I think Aston Martin with just Alonso's points alone would be where they at right now.
Sure, yeah, but you got to wonder, is Stroll just trying to get himself fired so they have an excuse to get another driver in the car? I don't know.
Where they're gonna put?
I don't think so, but
unless he's gonna go to that Aston Martin hypercar.
Well, that's been one of the rumors, but there's also rumors that his dad's looking to sell the team.
Yeah, that's
at the end of the day, his father's a businessman, and when you look at the business models in Formula One right now, the value of that team is far in excess of what he paid for it. Because he basically paid nothing for it when Racing Point went under. So he's put a lot of money in there. They've got a new technology center for Aston Martin there at Silverstone. So if somebody was looking to come along and buy a team, he'd be pretty high up on the list of people looking to sell, I think, purely because he's a businessman. And but that's the same in every sport as well. These teams that are owned by businessmen rather than sporting people are always for sale at the right price. And I'm not saying that it would happen, but it wouldn't surprise me massively if in the next 2 or 3 years there wasn't some movement on that front, and he did look to sell.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if Michael Andretti ultimately is not granted a spot on the grid by the FOP, if he may look into purchasing Aston Martin, because that would be, the guaranteed way. Then he tried to buy Sauber.
I mean, that was the press releases were being written when that one fell through. So there's obviously a lot of moving parts in the commercial side of Formula One right now. As you mentioned with the Andretti setup there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and the money floating around is pretty significant right now.
Absolutely, yeah. So
and also again, that lineage of that organization again going through moving doors. Seems like every few years it's always that way since Jordan became Midland.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean that whole the
Silverstone shop in general.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, Eddie Jordan is when he had that team, it was a little bit of a fly by night sort of organization in the nicest possible way, but they've never had that secure foundation and basis, and and that dates back all the way to when Honda put their backing into BAR rather than Jordan. It was that sort of deal, which one did they buy, and they ended up buying BAR rather than Jordan, and it sort of fell that way for them, unfortunately, and they've always struggled a little bit, and Vijay Mallya came in with Force India and then Racing Point, and it's just they
can never find stability on the financial end or who's running it since Eddie sold his acquisitions to Midland. And even Midland didn't even last. It became Spiker a year and a half later.
Yeah.
And Spiker lasts even less.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see. But this, they do seem to have a decent basing now. They've got a new factory in Silverstone. They've got a new wind tunnel up and running. They've got some real money invested in them. And it's just finding somebody to take it long term. I don't know if the Stroll family are the right people to do it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if his kid is getting disillusioned with F1, I mean, that's the only reason Lawrence is in there to begin with. To kind of live vicariously through his son, and if his son don't want to do it, I don't know. So
it sounded like that Breaking Point series EA made. It's like we're literally seeing the Butler family in the lives of the Strolls. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where all this is coming from.
But you've also
you've
also got to look on the flip side of it. Is we've talked about guys like Checo being under pressure, but there's no heir apparent to that seat, which is probably one thing that's saving him. Similar with Lance Stroll, there's no direct replacement for him. You know, I believe they have
Who'd they?
Stoffel Van Dorn as a test driver.
Yeah, I think isn't Drugovich part of Aston Martin?
Drugovich is in there as well, but again, Drugovich is good, but is he an A-list driver that's going to fill that void?
Yeah, but is Stroll an A-list driver? You know what I mean?
Well, no, for sure.
Exactly. That's why. So if you put Drugovich in there, it couldn't be any worse.
But then you look at the class of 2023 in the Formula 2 world, there's still not an amazing crop of talent coming through. You know, the championship leader, Perez, has only won one race all season. You know, so it's there's nobody knocking on the door. You know, you've seen that in the past in Formula 2. There's been, you know, one year we suddenly get 3 or 4 graduates come through and they all do great. And then other years, you go 2 or 3 years and there's really nobody that really sort of stands out. And I think we're in that little bit of a lull right now. And, you know, that maybe plays into the hands of some of these guys that are struggling a little bit because there's nobody to step up and take that place.
Yeah, it's going to take something for like a Drugovich. Look at it's kind of apples and oranges. Look at INDYCAR. Linus Lundqvist going to get anything, and then Pagano got hurt, and Linus got his opportunity. Now he's got a full-fledged ride with Chip, which I have my opinions about Chip Ganassi being rookie loaded with one championship established veteran, quote unquote, twilight in his career, and another one that's more known for lawsuits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you say, the top 2 guys at the moment are probably Drugovich, as you say, and Schwartzman as well, who, you know, again, he's not got a drive. I think he tests for Ferrari, doesn't he? I think he does some work for
he's
Ferrari,
part of the Ferrari pipeline.
Yeah, but again, there's nobody.
Still got Mick Schumacher still hanging around.
Yeah,
looking for work.
I think Mick could be in line for that Williams drive because I think Logan Sargent's struggling
on his
pretty
way
bad.
out.
I know he had a very, very difficult weekend in Qatar, obviously for more reasons than just pure pace. You know, although he was struggling, both Williams drivers struggled, and you know, all the drivers struggled, or a lot of the drivers. The only driver I saw that got out of his car without any sort of physical limitation was Fernando Alonso, the guy that's older than any of them. But you know, some of the guys had to be. I mean, you know, apparently Pierre Gasly was sick in his helmet in the first 10 laps of the race, and
kept driving. Yeah,
Logan Sargent only made 20-30 laps of that race and was carried from the car. It was pretty brutal on them, and you don't like to see that. You really, really don't. So
but I think Gasly made a comment like, he says, "You're gonna have to kill me before I'll get out of the car during a race." But you can imagine how uncomfortable it is. Vomiting in your helmet for 2/3 of the race.
Yeah.
I think it's probably why that race is much later or it's not going to be in the same time period next year.
No, they are going to move it. I mean, the only reason I think it was where it was now was partly due to the back end of the World Cup from last year that was held in Qatar and recovering from that. But it was not a good. That they need to improve it, and I mean it's not the most. You've got Bahrain and Qatar. I mean, that I hate to say it, but they're both pretty nondescript circuits. They're up in the old Vegas parking lot style circuit. I think they're good tracks, but
but they're not.
They're not
take us to Portimao or somewhere like that rather than Qatar. Or take us to Kyalami or Buenos Aires.
I was going to say Kyalami.
Take us somewhere interesting, please.
Yeah, and then whenever they have Kyalami, people can actually call it a proper world championship. You have all the continents excluding Antarctica.
Yeah, I mean, how many world champions? I mean, hey, Super Bowl's a world championship, right?
Yeah,
they call it the World Series. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. But the World Series is described by players, which is I think you can get away with that, but no, there's that whole thing. But with the temperatures, I mean, we've seen this every now and then. People talk about Dallas '84 or one. I think what race was it, like several years ago as well, where we saw drivers literally pass out just trying to finish the race, and then only to find out the car is underweight or overweight, and they disqualify them.
Yeah. That got Dallas '84. That's the one where Nigel tried to push his car to the line and collapsed.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's what it was so hot there. The track was coming apart.
Yeah.
It was an absolute mess. It was one of the times I first heard profanity on the television, and it came out of Nicky Lauda's mouth. You know, he said the track is really shit. So, anyway, well, let's where are we off to next?
We are off to
Austin,
Coda,
right?
I believe. Yeah,
Coda, right?
Yep.
Coda in a
Got
couple
3
of weeks.
weeks back-to-back: Coda, Mexico, and Brazil.
All right,
back to the US. Stupid calendar.
Yeah, they go to Vegas on a Saturday, and then they go all the way to Abu Dhabi the week after Vegas.
Yeah.
Sustainability.
But yeah, no,
sustainability.
Coda in a couple of weeks. See how that goes. Hopefully Danny Rick will be back in the car. You know, he loves racing in North America.
Yeah.
And the fans love him. He's got that great personality that suits it down to the ground. So we'll see how that all works out.
Yep. And again, the championship all sewn up. There still is the matter of is Checo going to lose second place?
If Lewis had a half decent finish. Yeah. If Lewis had a half decent finish in Qatar, you know, he would have closed that gap a little bit more because Checo would have been about a point. So
yeah, it would have been half.
Yeah,
Checo dodged a bullet when Hamilton dropped out.
Well,
so
so Checo's anyway.
He dodged one of many bullets.
It could have been much. It could have been even worse had
he dodged that one bullet while the rest of them hit him. So
like people were saying, oh, if both Mercedes somehow took out Max with them, we could have had like the feel good story of the year. But who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? All right,
we had a good race. Race.
So
it wasn't a big march. It was like 4 seconds.
So Richard, where'd you spend this past weekend?
I was down at the Roval. Well, Sunday afternoon anyway. Sunday afternoon down at the
Charlotte Roval.
Yeah, great weekend.
How was that? I enjoyed watching.
The first stage was fantastic. The first stage was brilliant, phenomenal first stage, and the rest of it went to shit. Who bought back the damn stage breaks? Sorry.
People were complaining there was nothing good on the road course. It's like, okay, we're bringing it back.
We had some pretty damn fast Toyota Camrys this last weekend, I must admit.
But I want to say the reason they brought them back was so it would be fair during the
who cares
playoffs.
About being fair? God damn it, who cares about being fair when you got a fast car?
And they want to put a restart lane somewhere else. It's like, it's whose line is it anyway? NASCAR edition.
Yeah,
I'll tell you whose line it is. AJ Allmendinger, proving again while he's the best road racer in the series. You can never count him out on a road course.
I think the only guy that could have gone toe to toe to him this weekend was Tyler Reddick. I think Tyler was pretty damn quick. Yep. Chase had his pace as well there, but it's the whole sort of equation. Do you go for stage points early or do you go for the race win? And, there was a lot of split strategies there. The Torres and the 2311 guys went for the early stage points. And then some of the cautions just flew a little bit out of sequence for them, which shuffled them back in the pack. And, 3 or 4 of the guys who did happen to manage to cut through. You think Tyler up there. Ross Chastain started to make some moves up through the pack, but eventually wasn't enough for him. And you ended up at the end there with Kyle Busch finishing third and being eliminated from the playoffs. And that was my only fear with in those last 10-15 laps was that William Byron and AJ would come together, take each other out, and then Kyle come through and claim that last playoff spot and knock one of our guys out, but thankfully that didn't happen. But it was, it was. I enjoyed it. From a spectator standpoint, I think it's great that you can see everything in front of you, pretty much. We thoroughly enjoyed it. And was it the most interesting race in the world? Probably not. But that's
fun. It's always fun to go.
Yeah, but it's also a testament to the skill level of these drivers and how they've adapted to road courses over the years. You go back 5 years, road courses were an inconvenience for 90% of the Cup field, and then there's 3 or 4 guys that loved a road course because they knew what they were doing. Whereas now, even pretty mediocre road course drivers in the past are now stepping up and being able to get around those turns, pretty respectively. So that may be why these races are considered boring, because they're not spinning off every other lap, and they're not sticking it in the wall, and they're not, rubbing fenders all the time, because they've seen it that, 6 road courses in the season now. It's something that they have to be good at if they want to have a serious opportunity to win a championship. And, these guys in the past that maybe haven't taken the road courses seriously enough or trained for them or have upped their games, and you really got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, more so now with next year having 2 road courses in the playoffs.
Yeah. So, I think that, it's the nature of what you expect to see, that these drivers are going to start to prioritize some of this driving and, the style of driving, and it is going to become, higher quality and higher standard.
Yep. So let's talk about this. Was an elimination round, like you said. You didn't mention Kyle Busch was eliminated. Also eliminated Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, and Brad Keselowski were all eliminated. Remaining in the playoffs, William Byron, Truex, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Chris Buescher, who's my dark horse candidate, Christopher Bell, who's very impressive to get it through to the round of 8, Tyler Reddick. Again, great run for him. And then Ryan Blaney rounding out the top 8 there. So from there, we've got 3 more races. We'll shave this down to 4. And so shaping up pretty good. We got a decent mix of guys up there at the top. When you look at guys that have been around a while, like Truex, guys that are relatively newer to the sport, like William Byron and Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick.
And Truex has made it this far, and that's why the regular season to some people is very crucial, because had he not had the strong regular season, he has not had a top 15 in 2 months now.
Yeah, but he's gliding through on those extra points he got for winning the regular season championship.
He still has that double-digit plus line above the cut line.
Yeah,
he's not a lot, but he's still there. It kind of very telling to some people.
Very telling. Yep. So
sooner or later, he got to get it together, though.
Yeah.
Because imagine if he somehow makes it to the championship without a top 15 in 2 months, going on 3. The madness of that, the madness that people are going to be having on social media. And then people look at it and say, well, it's one of those things like show up for a bit, disappear, and then championship time, you show up again.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it a time or two before. I want to say the last one, Joey Logano won a championship. He was just kind of mediocre during the regular season, but came alive in the playoffs, and most importantly, won that final race. And that's the thing. You remember that one year Ryan Newman was down in the final 4, hadn't won a race all year.
2014, I think. Yeah,
that sounds about right. And
he was a good restart away, or probably a few tenths away from winning it.
Yeah, he could have won that thing with not winning any races, which is the whole reason why they come up with the playoff format in the first place, was when Kenseth won in 2003 with Kenseth had 1 win?
Yeah, the one at Vegas, and led the championship from Atlanta onwards.
Yeah. But
Michael Waltrip was the championship leader after that 1 win Kenseth had. Yeah, people forget Michael Waltrip led the championship more outside of the Daytona 500.
Michael Waltrip. Now, did you see that? Did you see that movie they made? What is it called? Blink of an Eye. Did you get a chance to see that one yet?
Oh, I've seen that years ago. I wrote a review about it for Motorsports Tribune a day after it came out. Yep. Long time ago, 2019.
Yeah,
I think I prefer the Kyle Busch document. I prefer the Kyle Busch one over the Michael Waltrip one. It's done by the same people. The Kyle Busch one was much well crafted.
I didn't know there was a Kyle Busch documentary out there. I'll have to find that and check it out.
Yeah, it's called Rowdy. It's by the same people that made Blake and I, but it was way better in every facet of the imagination. in a sense of how it's done and crafted.
Yeah.
Let's just say blink of an eye is the equivalent of All Eyes on Me, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, did you see the Scott Dixon one?
I did. I have the DVD somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good one too. So, well, we're off topic. Well, at least from a racing movies, we're not talking Monty Python skits.
But with Allmendinger, there's like this whole saying about, is he going to go back to Xfinity? Was that the emotions that symbolized? Is he not coming back to the Cup Series? Like, dude, it's like any Cup win is a Cup win, no matter how long it is. For Allmendinger, this is the third time he's won his Cup career. 2 of them are Rovals, if you want to call it the Indy one a Roval. Pick and choose how you want to say it.
They don't necessarily call it a Roval, but I suppose it is.
And then
didn't Charlotte make up the word Roval?
Yeah, even though the road has been around for 40 years.
They used to just call it the infield road course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The infield road course. But that's been there for 40 years. People forget that IMSA GT used to run there, but way before NASCAR came along and made it the thing that it is today. But it was a big deal for Allmendinger at the end of the day. He was one of those drivers I was more or less disappointed in how his season gone, because it felt like road courses with this current car, perfect combination for Allmendinger to be knocking on the door, be scoring multiple wins. But this is his first one this season, and who knows, could be his last, because there's this rumor about, quote-unquote rumors, that Chandler Smith could be working his way up to the Cup Series, or somebody else is going to be driving that car. There's been rumors that Dillon could be a colleague.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff going on. And speaking of silly season, Carson Hocevar is going to be running the 42 for the rest of the season before he goes to Spire's 77 program.
Right. He's going to take over Ty Dillon's ride.
Yep. And Sheldon Creed is gone from RCR at the end of the Xfinity Series season, in the midst of Creed trying to go for a championship 4th spot.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a slight surprise.
Yeah, but with Creed, he's still yet to win an Xfinity. How many races he's been in the mix, just could not get it done. I think it's one of those things like RC is cut third about, whereas Austin Hill has actually been a frequent contender for wins. It's just that John Hunter Nemechek has been kind of dominating as of late, that Austin Hill's kind of been in the background in that regard, in the wins category.
Yeah. Did Xfinity race
for Creed?
Did Xfinity race at the Roval Friday? They didn't they?
Saturday with Sam Mayer winning another road course.
Sam Mayer, yeah. So did anybody punch him after the race?
No.
Okay, just checking.
Just only a confrontation, just like a chatter between Anthony Alfredo and Josh Williams. There was no punching or bros, just a talk. That's it. Jeff Burden made a big mistake trying to go for the trying to make it to the next round. So it's him, Josh Berry, Parker Kligerman, and one other driver I can't remember that are out from going in the round of 8. And as far as the truck series, we'll find out who's going to be in the championship 4, which is 3 spots available. Corey Heim's the only one that is in the championship 4 right now at Phoenix, going into Phoenix next month.
All right. Then one other bit of news, Matt Kenseth, coming back from the dead, or coming back from retirement, taking on an advisory role.
We didn't know him, Frank.
Say what now?
I think we didn't know.
Yeah, I was going to say Eric Jones is probably sweating right now. Because obviously, for those who don't remember, it was Jones that replaced Kenseth from JGR when Kenseth was still still running really well, just not a freaking winner the one year that he ultimately got replaced for.
Yeah, but then didn't they replace him like a whole year ahead?
Yeah, Jones took over to 20 in 2018. The Kenseth thing came out of late 2017. He was not going to be back in the 20.
Yeah. Yeah, so Kenseth is taking on an advisory role, which is, perfectly wonderful thing for these retired drivers to do. They either get into broadcasting or get into the the business side of the race team. So it's good. It's going to be good to see Matt Kenseth there at the track. I guess, Richard, you'll have the opportunity to work with them since Legacy is moving over to Toyota.
Yep.
So, you were telling me that Legacy is going to do their first test for Toyota here coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, hopefully. I think that's the plan. Back end of the year and NASCAR tire test out in Phoenix, getting everything ready for the 24 season. So, yeah, busy time for everybody.
All right.
As soon as Phoenix is over in early November, we don't shut up shop until the Clash. That's for sure, or the Coliseum. We're going to be hard at it.
You know, they should call that the Clash of Seum. So the Clash of the Coliseum.
No.
I don't
Well,
know.
look, if you can make up the word,
it's got to be Spanglish.
If you can make up the word
season.
Roval,
It's got to be Spanglish because of the Mexico Tour in 2024,
Who's
which
the
they already.
Who's the winningest driver on Rovals?
If you count Xfinity and Truck as Allmendinger, he's won every race he has been in a Roval since 2019.
Yeah. There you go. Allmendinger.
He's won at least, not every race, not every race. He at least been able to win one Roval race every year since 2019.
You know, Allmendinger's had such an interesting career. You know, he's had so many ups and downs, you know, but yet he's still there.
He had a couple of ups in there as well, didn't he?
Yeah, like he was having that. He was kind of getting the gist of things that car over there in the background, and then had to redeem himself years later.
Yep. I guess there's some ups and downs, but he's still around, still winning races, man. The dinger. All right, so INDYCAR is in at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway today and tomorrow. They're doing both rookie orientation testing and some hybrid engine testing. So the today we had Tom Blomqvist, Linus Lundqvist, and Armstrong all complete their rookie tests. They all those guys seemed like they had a good time. Nobody had any incidents. Nobody cracked the wall. Everybody passed their rookie test. So all three of those guys will be there for qualifying at the Indianapolis 500 in May. Tomorrow, Kyle Larson gets the track to himself from 11 to 2 to do his rookie test. I don't know why his is separate than the others, other than the fact I think I was told that because he has experience on larger tracks and super speedways, his is separate from these other guys that have either very little or zero experience on oval and super speedways. But you almost wonder.
Make sense, but
yeah, you almost wonder
publicity thing too. You know.
Oh yeah, it was just like when Alonso had his own test day all to himself. You know, and they live streamed that thing all freaking day. But you only get 2 hours of Kyle Larson, but you almost wonder, wouldn't you know, you're out there, you're learning the ins and outs of driving IndyCar. Obviously he's done a bit of sim work and stuff. Wouldn't you like to see how that car performs in traffic?
Or see how the other rookies do too, as well.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I think it's more likely he just wanted to get some, you know, I think it is probably best for him, having never driven the car before, just to get some time to himself, you know, without any of the cars around, see where the limit of that car is, and then slowly, you know, bringing over time other cars and, you know, slowly build up. I think if he went straight out there with other cars, I don't think you'd get a really, really good baseline. And of course, then people will be comparing it straight away to the other guys, which I think is wrong as well.
Yeah.
People
have high expectations of him. They think he's going to knock it out of the park right out of the box, and which he may do. As a matter of fact,
I mean, McLaren looked good last year, just didn't win. Then again, we could say that about every round that season that they.
Well,
didn't
I mean, you know, hitting the walls and shit doesn't help. You know what I mean? Between Pato and Felix, yeah, both of them ended up.
Rossi was like quiet. Kanan brought it home in one piece, as best as he could.
Yeah. Well, TK is always good for bringing the car home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's
even though he was right there at the very end, but he just only had 2 laps in 22 when he drove for the Ganassi in the one car. Compared to this year, it was only just 1 lap and that's it.
Yeah. All right. So hybrid testing at the Speedway, right? So now, Richard, help me out with this, okay? Because my understanding of the system they're putting in the Indy cars, right? It's kind of similar. It's going to replace the push to pass, I guess, right? The hybrid system, right? And then this is also regenerates power under braking, right? So isn't this totally useless at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
I'll be completely honest. I don't know enough about the system to determine how it's going to function.
Neither do I. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, no, I don't. But yeah, I mean, you don't have push to passes on ovals at the moment anyway. And I think the reason they're doing this is just to say, okay, will this work on an oval? Because the last thing they want is to swap engines out and chassis out and all this sort of crap between events.
Yeah.
You don't want an oval engine, you don't want a road course engine. It's just like, can this engine work? And it could be that they're, so for example, I imagine one of the things you'll see is they'll go away from the jump start situation that you have at the moment in IndyCar, where if a driver stalls, they have to have like the Formula 1 cars used to have back in the day, you have to have an external starter motor to jump start the car. If they have a hybrid system in there, you don't need to do that because you can start the car off the electric motor.
They'll have a starter on the car. That's part of the thing.
So again,
you don't have to bring the guy out there with the.
Yeah. So partly that's something that you may, you'll probably want to see at the ovals. They still want to maintain that ability to start a car, from cold without having to often, crank it. Without the need for the external starter. So in terms of performance, I don't think we're really going to see much. As you say, now what they may do is say, okay, you start the race with a fully charged battery, and that gives you the equivalent of whatever, and you can deploy that however you need and when you need to. And under caution you can recharge it, and coming in down pit road you can recharge it. So there is potential for the opportunity to recharge it, but it's not like a conventional road course where every time you're on the brakes you put energy back in, because you probably deplete it a lot more often as well. So who knows? It'll be an interesting thing to see how they do that.
Which exactly is why they got to test it, right? We got to test that and see if it works. So all right, good enough.
These cars that were running, yesterday, today and tomorrow, they have the hybrid engine in, or are they this year's spec car?
Pretty sure it's this year for the rookies.
The rookie tests are using the current spec cars.
And when's the hybrid test being done? Sorry, I didn't catch.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow in the morning. I think they've got the hybrids from like 9 to 11, and then again from like 2 to 3 or 2 to 4, and in between Kyle Larson's got the track from 11 to 1.
Okay. So how many laps does he have to do, and at what speed does he have to do them?
It's usually 10 laps, I think.
Yeah, but you gotta do 10 laps at 180, and then up to 190, then 200, and it's in phases. Yeah.
So
I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's been a long time since somebody's not been able to pass it.
Yeah.
It was like 20 years ago. Probably.
I was gonna say, probably. I think there are a few guys during the early IRL era. But before that, I think you got to go back into the 80s when you'd occasionally have somebody that couldn't pass the rookie test. But
I feel like there was a NASCAR driver in one of those that failed it. I feel like
could have been.
I can't remember. Something tells me for whatever reason, Bruce Jacoby was one of them. I don't know.
Could have been.
That's probably during our end of the year discussion of random stuff that we usually do it once a year at some point.
All right. So that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks, but coming up next week, October 18th, mark your calendars. All right. We got a special guest coming on here. Okay. Bryce Kenny. Now, Bryce Kenny drives a monster truck. I'm excited as can be. I mean, this season has been pretty fun for us, right? We've had a couple of IndyCar drivers on. We've had NHRA driver on. I've never, interviewed NHRA before. We had our motorcycle racer on for the first time. Now we're going to have Bryce Kenny, who's pretty high up in the world of monster trucks, and I am really looking forward to talking to that young man. We've got some posters and banners on our page. We ran a quick promo at the top of the show. Hope you got a chance to see that, but definitely that'll be next week, October 18th. We'll have Bryce Kenny on the show. That's one you won't want to miss. So, All right, fellas, we got about 5 minutes left. I can tell you that NHRA is going to be in Texas this week coming up, and Lee should be back on the program next week, so he'll be able to fill us in on what happens in NHRA. They were off this past weekend, so we got about 5 minutes to kill, fellas. So any topics on your mind that maybe we forgot to go over?
This weekend coming up, we have Petit Le Mans, the culmination of the IMSA season.
Yes,
with a number of championships still to be decided up there. From my perspective, the big one is in the GTD Pro category, where the 12 Lexus RCF car driven by Ben Barnicoat and Jack Hawksworth, names that are probably pretty familiar to most of you guys out there, just need to start the race and not get disqualified to claim the championship. It'll be the first championship for the Lexus car in the 7 years that it's been running in IMSA. A culmination of some really, really hard work by the Vassar Sullivan team, INDYCAR background, and a lot of guys at Lexus in California and North Carolina, and also support from them over in Japan. So on a personal note, that's going to be a great achievement. First championship I'll have been, championship victory, hopefully, I'll have been directly involved with. So pretty good way to start the sort of culmination of our championships going forward over the next few weeks. Hopefully that'll be the first of 2 or 3 that we can clinch in 2023.
Right. Yeah, I know you've done a lot of work with that Lexus program, so I'm very excited for you guys down there. And of course, Hawksworth, the guy I just like, man.
He's a good guy. We have some fun.
Good guy, yeah. So, best of luck to the Lexus team. That's Road Atlanta, right?
Yep, Road Atlanta, Petit Le Mans, 10-hour race. And we've got 3 drivers in that package. I think Carl Kirkwood's also driving for the Pro car in the GTD Pro category. I think it's Kyle. I know we had Kyle in the car at Daytona. I think he's coming back for this one as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Kirkwood's a fine driver as well. So
yeah. And
all right, Louise, what's your final thought for tonight?
Well, keep it news related. Shane Van Gisbergen won the Bathurst 1000, his last one before he goes do NASCAR and all that other stuff to prepare himself for a possible Cup campaign in 2025. So SVG winning at Bathurst is probably a good closure for him of his string of dominance after McLaughlin moved to INDYCAR, and now he's going to go to NASCAR. So good for him. And
so see, now we got to wonder who takes over the mantle in Australian V8 Supercar with all their top stars leaving to come to INDYCAR. Who's the next big guy there, right?
I think whoever's leading the championship, because Brody's 50-50, probably leaning towards NASCAR in the future too. And people forget Brody did drove the regional series before going to VA Supercars, or Supercars as it is these days. But that's a good question, because you have several of the, even before McLaughlin and now SBG going to overseas, you also had Jamie Whincup, Craig Lownster as well that dominated, but now they're mostly just endurance racing exclusive to some extent, especially Craig.
I mean, if nothing else, we see that series produces some pretty fine drivers.
Yeah, they usually have a revolving door, so I'm sure we'll have a few that will knock on the door, keep that. Yeah, the popularity and the success of the series alive, that's for sure. And for those who are wondering about the disqualification bit, the little side not good, it can't happen. Look at Penske and Watkins Glen, for example.
I'm sorry, what?
The IMSA with the disqualification thing.
Don't jinx Richard like that.
I'm not.
We've got that covered. We know we're going
no, it's like, no, they'll be fine, but it's like, for those wondering, it can't happen,
It can happen, yep. So, but it won't, because
no, I wouldn't expect it though, so they'll be fine. It's rare anyway, so.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, listen, Richard, thank you very much. Louise, thank you very much. Keith Hayes, our producer, Sinister One Productions, thank you very much. Let me thank the Ferrari film, the Alzheimer's Foundation, Luis Torres, Multimedia, Facebook Live, YouTube, Spotify. And once again, make sure you tune in next week where we'll have Bryce Kenny on the show. And most of all, I'd like to thank you folks that tuned in and watched and listened tonight. Until next week, good night.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Code Sinister One production.